and welcome back to Vinyl Friday, where I go through my records like a big nerd and talk about why I love them. Welcome also to the Classic Album Week for the month of May 2025. Today's album was one that picked up a couple of Grammys on the year that it was released, a couple of Grammy nominations as well. It went 4 times platinum, and the album went to #1 in the following countries: Austria, Australia, Canada, France, Germany of the Western variety, the Netherlands, Norway, and Spain. It actually also went to #1 here in New Zealand, but for some reason the Wikipedia entry decided to leave that out, so there it is for all of you who care. Today's album, as determined by your vote in this month's poll, is Breakfast in America by Supertramp. And it sounds like this. Thanks very much to everybody who voted in the last poll. If you would like to vote in the next poll, it'll be up in the first week of, where are we now? June, first week of June, on the posts tab of my YouTube page. So head on over there in the first week of June and cast your own vote. The song we're listening to today is one that feels increasingly relatable. And I'm really looking forward to exploring the marriage between the lyrical themes and the music that helps it along. But first, we're going to do a little primer on the band itself, and we're going to follow that up with another little primer on the album. Let's get into it. Supertramp was formed in 1970, and it coalesced around 2 songwriters whose names were Roger Hodgson, which is really hard to say, and I expect I'll be tripping over that throughout the episode, and Rick Davies. There were some lineup changes in the band, but they seem to be mostly settled by the time the band's third album, Crime of the Century, came out in 1974. They began as a prog rock band, but their compass slowly redirected towards pop. And the album that we're listening to today, Breakfast in America, is largely considered to be their poppiest. Let's talk about the album. It was recorded over the bulk of 1978. It was initially planned as a concept album about the relationship between the 2 principal songwriters called Hello Stranger, but they eventually decided that that was not a great idea, and they would scrap everything in favor of playing fun songs. It is unclear what the vibe was in the studio because reports are conflicting. Their engineer says, and I quote, "They got along fantastically well and everyone was really happy." Hodgson himself, Roger Hodgson, says that he thought that Davies actually disliked a lot of his songs, but just wasn't saying anything about it out of politeness. Awkward. And a journalist from Melody Maker reports, quote, "In 3 days with the band, I don't think I saw Davies and Hodgson converse once other than to exchange courteous greetings." So you can make up your own headcanon about that. The album's released in early 1979 to critical and popular acclaim. Now let's talk about our song. I am going to preface this section with a quick chat about late-stage capitalism, if you'll permit me. If you won't permit me, I guess you'll just switch the video. It is pertinent, I promise. There's a scholar and philosopher named Frederick Jameson, and around 1991, he made the statement that late-stage capitalism was determined by a globalized post-industrialist economy in which everything, including arts and culture, become consumable commodities. Are we following? Good. I knew I could trust you with this information. You're smart. I think that the logical song is the soundtrack to this experience, and I believe that the music adeptly corroborates the lyrics to that theme, to that point. Let's break it down. We're going to begin, logically, at the introduction of the song. This is a song about knowing oneself within a restricted, regimented system. And as such, the music in the introduction serves as a sort of overture. It teases the ending of the song, in a way. For example, we begin with castanets. Now, castanets are perfectly lovely instruments, but in the context of this song, they're kind of unserious. The keys are also emphasizing some of the offbeats instead of just playing the downbeats, which we'll get the piano correspondent to demonstrate for you right now. Hey everyone, how's it going? So in the introduction, the chord is being played to this rhythm. But instead of emphasizing each of those chords equally, Roger Hodgson, I think his name's fine to pronounce, is accenting the notes thusly. And the bass has this groaning call and response thing going on with the keys. Bass correspondent, you're up! Let's see if I get them in, I don't have to do as much work. Editor Nancy does though. All of these things together for me signal that the song is going to head in a quirky direction. But not yet. Our lyrical jumping off point is childhood. The idyllic and untutored whimsy of childhood.
When I was young, it seemed that life was so wonderful, a miracle.
Joyfully, playfully, these are all very open-hearted, joyful lyrics.
Oh, it was beautiful, magical.
But our first tip-off that something is off is in the number of bars in the verse. Right up top, we have an extra 2 beats. It should go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but it does not.
When I was young, it seemed that life was so wonderful.
What? An extra 2 bars. And then again at the end.
Beautiful, magical, and all the birds in the trees.
As listeners, it makes us feel like we're being tripped up as we listen. There's also this glorious and unsettling diminished chord. Piano correspondent, please. When you distill it to its essence, a diminished chord is when you take a chord and you squish it. So in this case, we take this chord, and we bring this note up a semitone, diminishing it. And while I have your attention, the mic and the camera, these are lovely, lovely verse chords.
When I was young, it seemed that life was so wonderful, a miracle. Oh, it was beautiful, magical.
And sure enough, that something off that is suggested to us in the first verse is revealed to us in the second. This verse is about adolescence.
They sent me away, teach me how to be sensible, logical.
So everything was great, everything was wonderful, idyllic, as I said. But then they sent me away to be taught responsibility, logic, pragmatism, seriousness. The not fun stuff, to have it drilled in. This line is actually about Roger Hodgson's time at boarding school, but I think that lyric is actually still relatable to any of us who have been, to quote Joni Mitchell, broken in churches and schools and molded to middle-class circumstance. An important thing to note here is that this song gets heavier as the narrator's life becomes heavier. And so at this point in the song, the drums sneak in, and then they announce themselves in between the verses, and then they take on this very straightforward, almost monotonous driving rhythm.
But then they sent me away, teach me how to be.
We'll get the drum correspondent to explain what I mean about that very straightforward driving rhythm. Well, hey! I must have done something right last week because they had me back! Also, the construction correspondent keeps changing things with the kit. So now, instead of a cardboard box, our kick drum is a one-of-a-kind vintage suitcase, primo quality, and our snare is a square snare. Anyway, let's talk about the logical song. And once more, I ask that you go easy on me because this is now my second week of playing drums. But approximately speaking, this is what the anchor is talking about when she refers to a very straight driving rhythm. Here we go. You know, just straightforward, driving along, nothing too experimental, no free jazz. Back to you. Similarly, the bass isn't playing outside the box. The bass part is very sensible, very logical. Bass correspondent.
Then they sent me away, teach me how to be sensible.
pulling out all the stops today. We arrive at our first chorus, which to me is the most magical part of the song. I love this part of the song. Our feelings change. They are now pensive. The narrator tells us that in the quietest moments, there is time for reflection, self-reflection.
There are times when all the world is clear.
And at this point, we have double-tracked vocals.
For such a simple mind.
I know it's serious at this part of the song, but... oh no. Oh no. No. We don't need to cry in the Supertramp episode. To be clear, at this point, this is just like misty-eyed because of the joy of music. No, never mind. Deep breath. There's also this string pad beneath those vocals that really broadens the song. The questions that the song is bringing up become wider, bigger, more existential. It's our existentialist chorus.
Questions run too deep.
The chords feel more open. The verses are this quagmire of minor chords and diminished chords. After the world of this, and this, and this, like, those are some of the chords in the verse. We get to the chorus. We have major moments. And although we have that one diminished chord, it's followed by more major chords. It feels like a release. It feels like you are confiding in the night, and it's taking the burden off your shoulders. And this is especially true at the ends of the phrases with that delicious guitar arpeggio. Finally, the drum pattern becomes a lot less driven and a little bit more open, a little bit off-kilter. There's a bit more space. It's like our quietest moments are actually realized by the rhythm section. Yeah, there's less of an emphasis on downbeats and everything just opens up a little bit. Oh, this is the good bit. Okay, so the first thing to note is that where before we were playing a very straight... here we start to open up with something a little bit strange. So it's emptier. There's less going on. Instead of a 1, 3, 4, we're getting... it's those quietest moments, the quiet moments when all the world's asleep and there's nothing going on. It's like it opens up space for that, right? Illustrating that lyric. And then as we get towards the end of the phrase, the whole drum kit opens up. We start to get fills. The hi-hat itself opens. And this is what I mean about opening up the hi-hat. This is a closed hi-hat. This is an open hi-hat. So one of them is much more reserved, clinical, serious, and the other is a lot more chaotic. In the chorus, that's when the chaos starts to break out. Specifically at the da-da-da-da-da-da. And then we're back to... but still, the wild is breaking out a little bit, and we get some crash. Like, it's all on. Technically, I think the crash is meant to be over here. I've done some Googling, but we don't have a ride, so we're putting the crash here. And we're doing that when we want a ride symbol. What else? Anything else? No. Let's just play the damn thing, shall we? Oh, wait, there was something else. Okay. In the second half of the chorus, we add this very off-kilter... here. You know, so it's a little bit wacky, it's a little bit strange. And it's a long way from... here, let's play it. That's the fun stuff, isn't it? Yeah. Cool chorus, huh? Ta-da! Back to you. And all of this happens because the end of the line is directing us towards the central thesis, the central question of this song. It is the identity crisis. It is the please tell me who I am.
Please tell me who I am.
When you're trained and altered and molded, at the end of all that, how much of that is you? And if your worth is tied to how dependable you are, what lies beyond that? We don't get our answers yet. We have another verse to get through.
What would you say? I'll be calling you a radical, a liberal.
This verse is heavier again. This is about adulthood. This is a verse about admonishment and the repercussions, the clapback, if you will, that follows speaking your authentic self out loud. You could be branded a liberal or a fanatical or a criminal. The song instead suggests that you sign up to join the masses and be more acceptable.
Won't you sign up your name? We'd like to be your acceptable.
Not too messy, not fit outside the box. Speaking of clapbacks, this verse adds a bunch of hand claps.
What would you say? I'll be calling you a radical.
Love a good hand clap. There's also ride cymbal. And I would get the drum correspondent to show you, but we don't actually own a ride cymbal here at Fathom Enterprises Limited. For reasons we'll get to in the end of the video. There's also this wild, feral, radical organ that comes in this verse. As I said, things get heavier. The narrator's life gets heavier and more serious. The song gets heavier.
Oh, fanatical criminal.
Fantastic. Fantastic use of organ. Love it. There's a sax solo after this verse.
Take it, yeah.
God, I love a bratty, shouty sax solo. Fantastic. I think this is slightly feral too, and it also teases the ending, which we're not up to yet, so I won't go into too much detail there, but it's a taste. It's also very percussive. In combination with the keys, we get this very urgent, driving ending to the solo. I really love how the end of the solo calls back to the beginning of the solo. I forgot the phrase. It happens. Very clever. So same motif, but an octave lower, and we'll see it. We'll see it again. We've finally arrived at our last chorus. This is the glory point of the song. This is the climax. This is when everything reaches a fever pitch. This chorus carries the cumulative weight of the entire song. We've experienced the chorus once, but this chorus has an added harmony to the lead melody. Our castanets are back. And they've introduced a counter melody. The questioning that they introduced in the first chorus has now become a crisis. These counter melody lyrics read, "Won't you tell me? Can you hear me? Won't you help me?" This is someone who has entirely lost their sense of personhood. And when we get to the "Who I Am" lyric, our narrator is now screaming into the void. This time, we get our answer. But instead of being this serious, big, heavy finish, it's the opposite. It's way emptier, but more important, it's silly. It's a jack-in-the-box plot twist of an ending. There's a total directional shift in this song. We go from these complex minor chords to these much lighter major chords, and dominant sevenths, and all of that. Piano correspondent, can you show us what I mean? Thanks. When you play a C major scale, this is the seventh note. That's a major seventh. If you play a C minor scale, that's the seventh note. So if you play a C major chord, but instead of playing the seventh note that belongs in that scale, you play the seventh note that belongs in the other scale, you get this goofy thing. And that's where we end up in the song. And it just adds to the air of general silliness at this point in the song. Just immaculately constructed. Excellent use of music to tell a story. Well done, Roger Hodgson. It gives this whole section a lightness that is antithetical to the earlier clinical, respectable, intellectual, responsible. Yeah, all of those earlier adjectives that we were given. There's a slide whistle. This section opens with a slide whistle. Ah, I love this part. This section is full of free-spirited whoops! And the sax solo returns. It's exactly the same, but in this major chord context, it sounds like a completely different solo. It takes on a new meaning. It's silly. It's goofy. The bass bounces. There's more breathing room in the bass part. Throughout the verses, our childhood, our adolescence, our adulthood, there is a dilution of the self. But when the question is asked at the end of who that self is, it is not the responsible, clinical, intellectual, all of that. Not that there's any problem with being an intellectual. I think there is merit in intellectualism. But anyway, that aside, it is the whimsical, joyful individual that we met in the first verse. This narrator is more than just a participant in a rigid system. They're a living, breathing human being. So good. Here's what Roger Hodgson says about this song. I've stored it on my phone for safekeeping. The logical song was born from my questions about what really matters in life. Throughout childhood, we are taught all these ways to be, and yet we are rarely told anything about our true self. We are taught how to function outwardly, but not guided to who we are inwardly. We go from the innocence and wonder of childhood to the confusion of adolescence that often ends in the cynicism and disillusionment of adulthood. In the logical song, the burning question that came down to its rawest place was, "Please tell me who I am." Ha! Called it. And that's basically what the song is about. I think this eternal question continues to hit such a deep chord in people around the world, and why it stays so meaningful. The song doesn't explicitly reference capitalism, but I think my point from the beginning still stands. Now, we haven't seen the soapbox correspondent since, I think, the Taxman episode for the Beatles' Revolver last year, but this seems like an appropriate time to give her a call.
How's it going?
Are you busy right now?
I'm about to head into a union meeting, but I do have a couple of minutes. What's up?
Okay, sweet. I'm wondering if you can tell our viewers about the plight of being an artist in, modern society.
Oh, sure, no problem. Let me just turn the camera on just a moment.
Basically, it's very, very difficult to survive as an artist in this day and age. Because while art is a commodity, it is not a very highly valued commodity. If you're a musician, for example, and you upload your music to a streaming service like Spotify, you'll be paid out tiny fractions of cents per stream. And you can't divide up your time as a part-time artist and part-time legitimate job, because as wealth concentrates ever upwards, the middle class is steadily disappearing, and it is damn near impossible to survive as working poor because the cost of living is so high. You can't even make art for art's sake, because within this system, your worth as an individual is judged by how, to quote Roger Hodgson, dependable you are, both as a consumer and as a worker. And an artist is often neither of those things. Those are my 2 cents.
So to bring this back to the song, making art in this environment is not responsible, dependable, logical. And to point out problems inherent in the system is to be branded a liberal, a fanatical, a criminal, and encouraged to resume your place within the system. And I will admit, I got a bit misty listening to, not just before, did get misty then too, but when I was preparing for this episode and listening to the song, I found that it hit a little bit too close to home. I really felt it in my chest. So I'd just like to give this reminder that humans are not innately built to be solely sensible, but rather to tell stories and to make music and to play, to paint, to dance. And not for the sake of being the best at these things in order that you can sell them, but just for the sake of being alive. So we opened with the thoughts of a philosopher, and I'd like to close in the same fashion. There's a scholar named Jonathan Crary who points out that our current version of capitalism, with its intrusive technologies and with social media, is eroding our human instincts, our human needs. Given that YouTube is a social media platform, that would suggest that I am part of the problem. So I would like to urge you at the conclusion of this video to switch your devices off, put a record on the turntable, something you really love, something you can really jam to, and sing or dance with reckless abandon, or don't. Just close your eyes and let it absorb. Indulge in your own humanity. And that's it for me. Now I'm gonna sell my art. Like a good little cog in the late capitalist system. If you enjoyed this episode, or you would like to support any of the weird things I do, I'll leave a link in the description to my Buy Me a Coffee, where you are most welcome to make a donation, if you wish. No pressure, my friends. Thank you very much to everybody who has made a donation or signed up as a member. I really appreciate you so very much. If you're curious about what any of my original music sounds like, I'll leave that in the description as well. Not the music, the link. Yeah. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you here next week. Have a great weekend! Where I go through my records. Nah. That's the wrong energy. Let's try again. Pointed in the wrong direction, and I have not hit record on this machine. That may not be exactly right, but you know, I get the feel. The feel is correct. The vibes are good. I haven't hit record yet. Welcome also to Classic Algum. Classic Algum. Welcome Austria, Australia, Canada, Francis. Who's Francis? On the posts, we're gonna do a little there's a ray of sunlight right here. So my hands are bringing the light. And not Ray Davies, not him. Oh, that's pretty. Oh, I hope this doesn't go away before. I could sit and look at this all afternoon and not record at all. Rainbows, look at that. Wow. It's got a rainbow in it. Wow, how gorgeous. And the album that we're listening to today, Breakfast. Can't sing and play, apparently. It was recorded over the bulk of Wow, the rainbow just got better. Wow. Look at that. Stunning. Feral organ. There's that New Zealand accent again. This is the climate axe, not climate. Someone told me once that this is a white supremacist dog whistle, but I'd just like to assure everyone I am not a white supremacist. This just keeps getting better and better. In all my years doing this, I guess I've just never recorded at the specific time of year and the specific time of day. But that's mighty pretty.